Hey, gay men. We need to have a serious conversation about ICE in Minneapolis. If you've been a subscriber for a while, you know I don't really talk about politics on this channel. That's not because I don't have political opinions. Trust me, I do. That's not because I'm uninformed. It's not because I'm scared. It's because that is not why I built this channel. I built this channel because I wanted a safe place for gay men to come together and talk about hard topics in a meaningful, thoughtful way. I want this to feel like community. I want this to feel like a place you can come to and breathe. I never wanted it to become another battleground. I never wanted it to become a place where we are just screaming at each other. And I need you to understand how serious I am when I say this. I have resisted talking about politics here because I care about what we're building. I care about this community. I care about you guys. I never want to do something that damages the mission of the channel, which is gay men learning how to think, how to feel, how to grow, how to be better to each other and to ourselves. But there comes a point where your conscience will not let you stay silent. There comes a point where your moral compass starts screaming at you. There comes a point where you realize that if you don't say something now, you might not even get the chance to say it later. And for me, we are there. And I'm going to say something directly to the gay men who watch my videos who are conservative or Republican, or who are just kind of allergic to anything that even smells like liberal. I see you. I know you're here. I know you exist because you tell me in the comments. And if that's you, I'm asking you, before you click off, before you unsubscribe, before you leave an angry comment calling me dramatic or brainwashed or whatever, just hear me out. Just give me 5 minutes of your nervous system being open. Because this is bigger than politics. This is bigger than the usual left versus right circus. This is about our shared humanity. This is about what kind of country we are becoming. This is about whether rights actually mean anything, or whether rights are just a cute little decoration we pretend to care about when it's convenient. Because what is happening with ICE right now, specifically what people are describing out of Minneapolis, is not normal. It is not normal. I don't care how you feel about immigration. I don't care if you think the border should be tighter. I don't care if you voted for, who you voted for. That is not even the point I'm making. The point I'm making is that when you watch a government agency murder an American citizen in the street and then call her a terrorist, it should set off alarm bells in your soul. This energy, this posture, this vibe, this behavior, it is not law and order. It is intimidation. It is fear. It is power. It is a government seeing how far it can go. And before anyone jumps in and goes, "Oh my God, you're exaggerating, you're being hysterical," no, I'm paying attention. There is a difference. And gay men need to be especially good at recognizing the difference. Because if you know anything about history, if you know anything about how this works, you know that we are never the ones who benefit when a government starts treating people like this. ICE is going door to door in Minneapolis asking people for papers. ICE is arresting children, minors, without their family even knowing. ICE is brutalizing people in the streets, ripping people out of their cars. People in Minneapolis are scared to even leave their homes. And I'm going to say something that might offend some of you. Some of you have become so morally numb, so desensitized, that you hear about people getting brutalized and your first reaction is, well, they must have deserved it. And I need you to understand what that sentence really means. That sentence means you are comfortable with the state using cruelty as policy. That sentence means you are comfortable with disappearing people. That sentence means you are comfortable with a country creating an underclass of humans who do not have rights. And once you do that, once you normalize that, once you emotionally accept that, you have crossed a line inside yourself. And you might think it ends there. You might think it stays neatly contained. You might think the machine only eats the people you personally dislike. That is not how this works. That is not how any of this has ever worked. Because when a government starts behaving like this, it's not just about immigrants or criminals. It's about power. It's about conditioning the public to accept things they would have never accepted 10 years ago. It's about training you to look away. It's about training you to say, "That's not my problem." It's about training you to treat other human beings like they are disposable. And then, when the machine is built, it gets used. It gets used again and again and again. Not because it's needed, because it's there, because it's effective, because fear is a tool and power is addictive. And let's talk about this idea that American citizens are safe, because some of you have this magical thinking. Well, I'm a citizen. I'm fine. Well, I was born here. I'm fine. Well, I have papers. I'm fine. That is adorable. That is naive. That is the kind of thinking people have right before they find out the hard way that the government doesn't always care. There are reports of US citizens getting detained for hours, sometimes days. There are stories of people being detained who are not who the agency was supposedly looking for. There are stories of people with every right to be here getting caught in a net that is too aggressive, too fast, too sloppy, too arrogant to care about being careful. And if you're the kind of person who hears that and goes, "Well, mistakes happen," you're missing the point. A system that can kidnap an American citizen and call it a mistake is a system that has become dangerous. A system that shrugs at that is a system that is no longer operating with the humility that the law requires. It's operating with the confidence that force creates. And that is exactly what authoritarianism feels like in real time. It feels like the government saying, "Oops," and you just have to accept it. Now, I know people hate it when anyone says the word Nazi. I know people hate it when anyone says Hitler. People love to act like those comparisons are automatically invalid. Like history cannot teach you anything unless it is perfectly identical. But I need you to be mature. I need you to be emotionally intelligent. I need you to understand that when we bring up Nazi Germany, we are not suggesting we are literally in 1939 and everything is the same. We are telling you there is a pattern. There is a progression. There is a recognizable shape. And I'm going to say something blunt. If you think you can't slide into authoritarianism in America, you are delusional. You are delusional. You have been raised on propaganda that tells you this country is immune. It is not immune. No country is immune. It's not a spell. It's not a magical force field. It is a set of institutions and norms and behaviors. And when those degrade, your little fantasy collapses. And here's where I need gay men to stop acting like we are spectators. Because guess who authoritarian regimes love to target once they've warmed up the machine? People labeled as degenerate. People labeled as corrupting. People labeled as a threat to the real nation. People labeled as impure. People labeled as immoral. People labeled as contagious. And hello, that's us. That is the gays. If you think you get to stand off to the side while immigrants get demonized and protesters get beaten and dissent gets criminalized and truth gets mocked and institutions get undermined, and then you get to be safe because you are a good gay who minds his business, you do not understand how this goes. The Nazis targeted gay men. That is history. Gay men were imprisoned. Gay men were sent to camps. Gay men were marked with the pink triangle. And yes, the pink triangle marked gay men as the lowest status prisoners in many contexts. They were brutalized. They were subjected to violence. They were treated like filth. They were used. They were disposable. And please don't do this thing where you try to intellectualize it into meaninglessness. Well, actually, different groups were targeted at different times. Okay, fine. The point is not the ranking of suffering. The point is the mechanism. The point is what happens when a government decides some people are less than human, and the public goes along with it. Now let me get to the part some of you are going to hate. When I watch what ICE is doing and what people are describing in places like Minneapolis, the door-to-door interrogations, the papers, the show me you belong energy, it feels like an American version of the Gestapo. I don't care if that offends you. I don't care if you want to nitpick it. If it walks like it, if it talks like it, If it smells like it, I'm going to say it. And I'm also going to say something else. The political leadership in this country has been flirting with authoritarian language for a long time. They say it out loud. They admire strongmen. They mock democratic norms. They talk about using the state to punish enemies. They talk about dissent like it's treason. They talk about the press like it's the enemy. They talk about judges like they're illegitimate if they don't obey. They talk about experts like they're liars. They talk about civil servants like they're the deep state. Does any of that sound familiar to you? Because once you convince people that no source is trustworthy, then the leader becomes the only truth. Once you convince people that everyone outside the movement is lying, then reality becomes whatever the movement says it is. And once that happens, cruelty becomes easy, because you can justify anything by calling your victims criminals, or invaders, or monsters, or threats. And some of you keep saying, stop being dramatic, they're just enforcing the law. I need you to understand that the law has been used to justify atrocities for all of human history. It was legal, is not moral. It was policy, is not moral. It was the rules, is not moral. The whole question is whether the system is behaving with restraint, with humanity, with due process, with limits. Because that's the thing. A democracy is not just elections. A democracy is limits. A democracy is restraint. A democracy is the government being forced to respect rights even when it's inconvenient. Especially when it's inconvenient. Because rights that only apply when the government likes you are not rights. They are privileges. And privileges can be taken away. This is how authoritarianism works. You do not wake up one day in Nazi Germany. You do not wake up one day in a dictatorship. It is a slow erosion. It is a ratchet. It moves one click at a time. It moves when people are distracted. It moves when people are tired. It moves when people are demoralized. It moves when people are polarizing each other. It moves when people stop caring about the humanity of the other side. First, you divide the people. Real citizens versus outsiders. Patriots versus traitors. Moral people versus degenerates. Sound familiar? And once you divide the people, you can start doing violence and half the country will cheer because they believe the victims deserve it. Or half the country will shrug because they're exhausted. Or half the country will ignore it because they think it's not their fight. Then you undermine trust in independent truth. You attack journalists. You attack scientists. You attack judges. You attack academics. You attack civil servants. You tell your followers that the only thing they can trust is you. Because the second people have an independent source of reality, you lose control. Then you start criminalizing dissent. Protests become riots. Speech becomes threats. Activism becomes terrorism. Compassion becomes aiding criminals. Helping becomes a crime. Speaking becomes risky. And that is the part that should terrify you. Because once it becomes risky to speak, the public goes quiet. And once the public goes quiet, the state can do whatever it wants. And here's the part that gay men need to understand. Once a government successfully targets one group, it learns it can do it again. The machine is built. The public is conditioned. The institutions are tested. And then the question becomes, who is next? And please don't pretend that queer people are not constantly being framed as degenerates, as threats to children, as corrupting, as unnatural. I need you to stop playing dumb. I need you to stop acting like you have not been watching years of rhetoric that paints us as predators, or groomers, or sick, or dangerous. I need you to stop acting like your rights are guaranteed just because you personally have a nice life right now. Because if you are a gay man and you are watching a government normalize disappearances, normalize raids, normalize fear, normalize aggression, normalize the idea that certain people do not deserve full rights, and you are not alarmed, you are asleep at the wheel. And I'm gonna make it even more personal. If you are black and gay like me, it hits differently. Because when broad government power expands, it doesn't hit everyone evenly. It hits people who already get treated as suspicious. It hits people who already get treated as threatening. It hits people who already get treated like they need to prove they belong. And you can call me paranoid, you can call me dramatic, you can call me whatever. But the reality is, if the state decides it wants to use the machinery, it will find reasons. It will find excuses. It will find justifications. And the public will help by believing the worst. So what do I want from you? I want you awake. I want you awake, not panicked. I want you awake, not violent. I want you awake, not hateful. I want you awake in a way that is grounded and mature. I want you to stop being emotionally manipulated by tribal politics and start thinking like a person who cares about civilization. Because this is what it comes down to. Are we going to be a country where rights are universal? Or are we going to be a country where rights are conditional? Because if rights are conditional, then none of us are safe. Not immigrants, not citizens, not conservatives, not liberals, not you, not me. Once you accept the logic that the state can treat some people like animals, you are only arguing about the order in which the state comes for different groups. You are not arguing about whether it will happen. And if you're still listening, I respect you, even if you disagree with me, especially if you disagree with me, because I'm not asking you to become a clone of me. I'm asking you to remember what it means to be human. I'm asking you to remember what it means to have principles. I'm asking you to remember what it means to be a gay man who understands in his bones what it feels like to be labeled as wrong. So yeah, I said what I said. What's happening right now is terrifying. And if you think this can't turn into something worse, you don't know history and you don't know power. And I'm going to end with this. If you feel defensive, if you feel angry, if you feel the urge to dismiss me, I want you to ask yourself why. Is it because I'm wrong? Or is it because what I'm saying is forcing you to look at something you don't want to look at? Because this is the moment. This is the moment where people decide whether they're going to sleepwalk or whether they're going to pay attention. I love you guys. Stay safe, stay grounded. And if you want to disagree in the comments, do it respectfully. But don't you dare cheer for cruelty. Don't you dare laugh at human suffering. Don't you dare become the kind of person who thinks other people deserve to be treated like this. Because that's how it starts. And that's how it spreads.